Our scripture today is from Isaiah 65, verses 17 through 25. For I am about to create new heavens and a new earth. The former things shall not be remembered or come to mind, but be glad and rejoice forever in what I am creating. For I am about to create Jerusalem as a joy and its people as a delight. I will rejoice in Jerusalem and delight in my people. No more shall the sound of weeping be heard in it, or the cry of distress. No more shall there be in it an infant that lives but a few days, or an old person who does not live out a lifetime. For one who dies at 100 years will be considered a youth, and one who falls short of 100 will be considered accursed. They shall build houses and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and eat their fruit. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. For like the days of a tree shall the days of my people be, and my chosen shall long enjoy the work of their hands. They shall not labor in vain, or bear children for calamity, for they shall be offspring blessed by the Lord, and their descendants as well. Before they call, I will answer. While they are yet speaking, I will hear. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together. The lion shall eat straw like the ox, but the serpent, its food shall be dust. They shall not hurt or destroy on all my holy mountain, says the Lord.
Our gospel reading today is from the Gospel of Luke, the 21st chapter, verses 5 through 19. When some were speaking about the temple, how it was adorned with beautiful stones and gifts dedicated to God, he said, "As for these things that you see, the days will come when not one stone will be left upon another. All will be thrown down." They asked him, "Teacher, when will this be? And what will be the sign that this is about to take place?" And he said, "Beware that you are not led astray. For many will come in my name and say, 'I am he, the time is near.' Do not go after them. When you hear of wars and insurrections, do not be terrified, for these things must take place first, but the end will not follow immediately." Then he said to them, "Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and plagues, and there will be dreadful portents and great signs from heaven. But before all this occurs, they will arrest you and persecute you. They will hand you over to synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors because of my name. This will give you an opportunity to testify. So, make up your minds not to prepare your defense in advance, for I will give you words and a wisdom that none of your opponents will be able to withstand or contradict. You will be betrayed, even by parents and brothers, by relatives and friends, and they will put some of you to death. You will be hated by all because of my name. But not a hair of your head will perish. By your endurance, you will gain your souls." May we hear and understand what the scriptures are teaching us today. Let us pray. Creator God, in the midst of continual change, you remain steadfast. In your love for us, you are creating something new. a new heaven and a new earth. Each day offers newness of hope and faith. Help us to open our hearts and our spirits to your creative word for us, that we may learn, grow, and serve as effective witnesses to your love and power. Amen. So Wednesday morning, about 2 a.m., I knew it was going to be a challenging week. That's really to say the least. Words just don't even come close as to how challenging the week has been and will continue to be. Fear, angst, anger, protests, desperate need. The news has been full of all sorts of blame games. Facebook has seen people still throwing things at one another with words, even though the election's over. I've heard stories of hateful actions. I've had people call me to tell me that their car was graffitied, that they were told they would have to leave, that their hijab was pulled off of their head in the market, saying, you can't wear that anymore. Now, understand me. I blame the people that do those actions. And I by no means really think that anybody thought that this level of divisiveness existed in our communities and in our world. And that people full of hate who had been hidden would be so bold. I also have been very busy trying to talk with people, some of them students, some of them friends, trying to convince them not to respond, good morning, come on in, you're welcome. Not to respond in like manner. So if someone is saying, I voted for peace and unity and being stronger together, so you're all horrible people and I hate you, that doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. No matter who somebody voted for or not, responding with violence and hate one to another doesn't solve anything. So how do I choose to respond? I am choosing to respond with faith, hope, and love. Those three from Corinthians 13, the greatest of them being love. I am choosing that I continue to work to share our good news, that I continue to listen to God's still speaking voice. Sometimes people become complacent and they think, oh, all of this is great, we're all wonderful, nothing is going to be a problem. And it takes a crisis like this sort of a campaign and this response to make us aware that not everything is wonderful. And not everybody is happy. And not everybody has learned to embrace each other with love. And it's not all cotton candy and hugs. But yet, if someone attacks me, verbally, physically, however they attack me, I choose not to respond in kind. If they are, however, attacking my family or my dog, they might see the ground. Jesus' advice to turn the other cheek often grates against people. But if we respond in the same way someone attacks us, we simply give them more fuel and more energy. It's like those Star Trek episodes where the big bad thing is out there, and the more the Enterprise shoots phasers into it, the more energy it absorbs and becomes even stronger and worse. You guys have seen some of those, right? Old repeats, right? The spaceship keeps firing its weapons into this evil cloud, trying to destroy the cloud. but the energy from those weapons makes that evil cloud stronger. Gene Roddenberry was a genius. Even now, as many people are afraid and angry, here's something we must remember. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said it much more eloquently than I ever could. And we've often heard the end of this quote, but I'm going to read the few lines before it. The ultimate weakness of violence is that it is a descending spiral, begetting the very thing it seeks to destroy. Instead of diminishing evil, it multiplies it. Through violence, you may murder the liar, but you cannot murder the lie, nor establish the truth. Through violence, you may murder the hater, but you do not murder hate. In fact, violence merely increases hate. So it goes. Returning violence for violence multiplies violence, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Some look around in despair right now, fearful of destruction and demise of all possible progress. And yet, there are signs of rebirth, signs of renewal. Now you may say, where? Everything's a mess. What are you talking about? Okay, right here in Ontario, we're hopeful that our new local leaders will fulfill their promises. On the city council, we had one person re-elected and one new person brought on. And one other person who was not re-elected, who had been sowing dissension in the council. So I'm hopeful that the new complexion of the council will work hard to make the community one that is safe and profitable and full of promise. New people have been elected to school boards. We've got some really good medical and educational institutions around here, and they're still here. And we just recently regained local control of the airport. These are all good things. These are all renewal, rebirth. Those are a few things to smile about. And we're just one city in the area, and there's other good and positive projects going on throughout the state and the nation. But across this nation, in addition to the latest events, the local news tells us the gap between rich and poor resembles the Gilded Age, when robber barons amassed fortunes at the top and the poor struggled below. No wonder there's a lot of unfocused anger. We spend billions of dollars on the military and on wars and destruction, and then we wonder whether we can afford health insurance for people. I don't have a perfect answer to that. I'm just saying, these are things that are troubling to us. CEOs pay tens of millions of dollars, and if they fail, they get golden exit packages that would probably eradicate the hunger in the city that they live in. It's not limited to cities either. Think about the Dakota pipeline. So far, this $3.8 billion pipeline threatens water supplies, and not just of the Dakota Sioux. It's everybody downstream, at least 17 million people. The pipelines are perfectly safe, right? We had another explosion this last week. So there's lots of discouragement out there, and there's lots of new dreams. But perhaps because of putting those things in perspective, we can think about the people of Jerusalem that Isaiah was talking about. These people who've been in exile and were trying to rebuild their city. These people who were disenfranchised from their entire way of life, and yet were back to rebuild. They knew the former glory. They knew how gorgeous that temple was, and that the new one didn't quite measure up. They knew there had been earthquakes and rubble. Think about Aleppo, Italy, earthquakes, rubble. Much of the city was in ruin. There was a lot of hunger, death, illness, sorrow, grief, economic injustice, political turmoil. Sound familiar? Sounds familiar. The first generation had returned to Jerusalem full of joy. They're coming home. They're coming home to their land. Everything is restored. Everything is better. Millions of people here were excited and hopeful that something new would happen. Something new did, but it wasn't exactly what everybody was thinking. Isaiah, though, he speaks in a vision of God, and he says, in the midst of all this suffering, in the midst of all this fear, that despite a long wait, God is going to do a new and great thing, create a new heaven and a new earth. Be glad and rejoice forever in what I am creating, for I'm about to create Jerusalem as a joy and its people as a delight. He says all the suffering will end. All of the no's that people had been hearing. No, this won't happen. No, will eventually turn into yeses. But how? How? Isaiah talks about the people of Israel being full of dreams. The need for dreamers and visionaries has never been stronger in my lifetime than it is now. And I lived through Vietnam. I was really little, but I was here. I played 20 different war protest songs from my War and Human Experience class last week. When I played the song Ohio, I used a YouTube video that had been created by another student in an earlier class. And the video had still shots stuck in a continuing slideshow while the song went on. And it showed the scenes on the campus. It's okay, I actually know who they are. It's okay. Yeah. Scenes on the campus of what was happening. There were scenes of the young people that were shot and killed on the Kent State campus. There were scenes of the National Guard in riot gear, kind of like Standing Rock, with their guns aimed at the students who were unarmed and who were running up the hill to the library building. There were scenes of all of this dust kicking up from all of the shooting. More than half of my class was absolutely in tears. They had no idea. Remember the song? The hell your elders grew through, worked through. They had no idea. And this was the very same day that the protests were starting after the election. And I said to them, I know this is a class about war and the human experience of war, and Kent State was part of that for a generation. And right now, we seem to be at some sort of domestic war going on. And there are protests. And there is violence out there. But the challenge is, what do we do? And what do you do as students? Now understand, I can't really preach to them at school. That's not my calling there. I'm their professor. But what I can teach them is what is fruitful and what is fruitless. And what we had talked about before was something called just war theory. But it has to do with discriminating between who the target is and isn't. It has to do with, you don't just declare war because somebody makes you mad or you're out for revenge. And your response should be proportional if you're going to war. You don't use bullets on unarmed students at Kent State. You don't do strafing bombing runs over the Red Cross hospital in Afghanistan. That's not just war. I didn't give them any answers. I didn't give them a solution as to what to do. other than to make their own decisions about what they support and how they work and how they think about this, and to try to open up their mind, because there is a reason for whatever's going on. And until we strive to understand that reason and make people understand that they are safe in talking to us, whichever side of the fence they're on, folks, that they are safe in talking to us, that they will be heard, there will be no progress made. This is why we need visionaries. This is why we need prophets. We need to let God speak and move in the midst of it all. Post-exile Israel was looking at rubble, and so are we. Israel felt overwhelmed and threatened, and so do many of us. Israel worried about its children, lamented about their deaths and the wasted lives of people, and so do we. But right in the midst of all of this despair, God speaks and moves. This is not an empty world of machinery where we just get what's coming to us and everybody's a cog in a wheel. It's not. Caring and healing communication is still possible. Love is findable. We are called to a larger view of God than a narrow view that says, what I think about God is absolutely right and nobody else is right at all. God is way bigger than all of us. And while I can't answer the question for people who said, how could God let this happen? What I can say is that we can trust that God is at work. And God will bring his dream to reality. But how? That news is good. That news is challenging. How? By giving us courage. By tapping us on the shoulder and saying, you, Jimmy, you are a visionary. You are here. You come from a land far away. And you are here and welcomed and loved. And you say hello to me. And you give me a hug. I have a very good friend, a wonderful and intelligent woman, a musician, a lesbian, who voted for Donald Trump. And she explained to me why she voted for Donald Trump. And I understood her concerns. And I explained to her why I didn't. And she understood my concerns. We resolved that we were going to start some sort of a group. And we were going to hope that other people will do this too. Where we bring together people with differing points of view who agree to be respectful of each other and who will discuss those issues. Because as it turned out in our conversation, we were in agreement in many topics. We just weren't in agreement about who might be able to help lead us to an answer. And what we weren't in agreement about either was the way some of the followers of both sides responded in terms of accepting those. Neither one of us liked the way any of the followers were acting from either side, except for maybe a few that were just standing in a corner trying to be peaceful. So we resolved that we want to start this. Now, neither one of us are politicians, and I am not going to be one. But I can host a discussion group, and so can she. And then, you know what popped up? 5 or 6 more of my friends said, hey, I think that's a good idea. Maybe I'll do it where I am. They're in all different states. They're all across the country. So, let's pray that that's a spot of vision from someone to help us out, to help us get together and discuss, be safe with each other no matter which side of that spectrum we were on last Tuesday, and start working to bring God's dream for us to reality. Now, I want to give you some tangible tools. Oh, I forgot to put the questions up there. They're on the website too, you can look at them. These were written before Tuesday, clearly. when all I was going to talk about was Isaiah. But how do we see the city? How do we see our community as a joy? Where are our possibilities in our own struggles for our community? And whose job is it to speak up for those disenfranchised people? How do we connect our faith with our public life and our work on God's project here to get together and love each other and be unified? And where do we find hope for possibilities of renewal? The questions still kind of apply, but now they have a more timely application. So, I have something for you. And you can take one or not, or you can take one and not wear it, or you can take one and wear it, or you can take one and think about it, and take it home and decide later if you want to wear it. Because it's a commitment. Sandy, will you hand these out? We've got one that we need. She's bringing you a piece of paper, and on the piece of paper is a safety pin and a printout of one of the memes that attempts to explain what the safety pin is about. Basically, the safety pin is simply a symbol and a sign, and some people say, oh, that's stupid, don't wear a symbol, do something. Okay, but I've also had people who said, I'm coming to you because I know you're a safe person to talk to. This safety pin is about letting people know that you're a safe person, that you will try to help or at least be there. If you wear a hijab, I'll sit with you on the train. If you're trans, I'll go to the bathroom with you. If you're a person of color, I'll stand with you if the cops stop you. If you're a person with disabilities, I'll hand you my megaphone. If you're an immigrant, I'll help you find resources. If you're a survivor, I'll believe you. This isn't on your list, this is another list. If you're a refugee, I'll make sure you're welcome. If you're a veteran, I'll take up the fight. If you're LGBTQ, I'll remind you that you are beautiful and beloved just as God made you. If you're a woman, I'll make sure you get home okay. If you're tired, me too. If you need a hug, I'll got an infinite supply. If you need me, I'll be with you. All I ask is that you be with me too. Together, we'll be the strong arm of God. And your meme is sort of an abbreviation of that. If you're Muslim, a woman, LGBTQ, a person of color, Latinx, some people ask me what that is. That's because there's many terms, Hispanic, Latino, and then there's also the trans community or the queer community in the Latin community. So this has come up recently as sort of an all-purpose term for that, especially people from the Latin Hispanic community who are LGBTQ. An immigrant, disabled, afraid, I'm here. Speak, I'll listen, I'll hold you, stand up for you, sit down for you, shut up for you, do what I can to let you know I love you. This sign is how you'll know me. Safety pin. Safety pins have sort of a long history. Some of it was in Europe a while back. Some people at Brexit started wearing them, and other movements before that. There's even an old Pennsylvania Dutch tradition of a safety pin being protection symbol. So it comes from sort of a long, wiggly line of traditions. If you choose to wear one, good for you. If you just want to think about it, good for you. Whatever, but I bring them today so that you can think about being there for each other. That's what that's about, being there for each other. Because divided, we are all vulnerable. But together, we can make God's dream and His defense of us real, visible, and durable. Somehow those pins seem to be giving some people courage to stand up with each other. So, there's a table up front which has some candles, and we're going to be singing a song, Blowing in the Wind, which you probably know, and I'll have the words up there. But as we sing the song, if you are a person who knows someone that you're concerned about, or if you're concerned about yourself, or if you're just frustrated or angry and you want to light a candle as a prayer and think and thought and focus, you're welcome to do so. You don't have to, but you can. And we're going to do that while we're singing our responding song. And the words will be up there on the screen for you. Hopefully I'll keep up with switching them as it comes to the right time. Blowing in the Wind, a song by Bob Dylan. How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? Yes, and how many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the candles fly before they're forever gone? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years must a mountain exist before it's washed to the sea? And how many years that some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head before ending he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? Yes, and how many years must one man have before he can hear people cry? How many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. So after they heard the song, they're like, what does he mean it's not a protest song? I said, I don't know. That's what he said.